What's up guys, my name is Lex Veldhuis and welcome to another episode of Learn with Lex. Today here I jumped immediately into a freeze out. It's the $11 kickoff. We're really deep actually. I think this is very interesting because I think a lot of you guys make mistakes on the river when pots get extremely deep. And it's actually mistakes that you can prevent a little bit earlier on in the hand. So I'm going to walk you through that. Note that in the top left you see how long the tournament's been running and you get to see how much time has passed in between decisions. So I was booting up my tables, put on the clock, it's been 6 minutes, and here we go. So there's flush draws. Obviously we chop against any king, but there could still be some value to be gotten from a queen. Also ace highs as in ace 10 or ace jack. I also think that it's very unlikely somebody has a 3 here, and if they had king queen on the draw board, they're probably re-raising before the flop. So fine takedown there. Alright, next hand we have queen 9 on the button. We're just going to open it. Obviously we're going to open. Queen 8 is about the bottom that we open though. Queen 7 offsuits definitely fold on the button. We can open a lot of hands, but the big blind will also defend a lot of hands, so we can't get out of control too much. Used to be that people were way too tight from the big blind, but that age has passed. Take it down. King 3 gonna go in the muck. It's really important that you know all these opening ranges, and that's one of the things you need to study. bbcpoker.com has a chart package. You can always look up hands. You can save it. You can, let's say you screenshot your hand, right? You just use a program like Yazo, you just screenshot a hand and you save all of those in one big folder, and afterwards you start looking up if you should have opened it or folded it, and that's how you're gonna know all the fringe cases. And I really, I mean, it's just so important to know that like king 9 offsuit always opens here, 10-9 offsuit always opens, queen 9 and jack 9 open half the time in the cutoff. Like all these things you should start knowing, you know? We're out of position, that means that our re-raises are gonna be a little bit bigger. So when you're in position, you're going to make it 3 times the raise. When you're in the small blind, it's going to be 4 times the raise, and big blind is usually going to be 5 times the raise. And then if you're extra deep, you make it a little bit more juicy, but we can go with this. If we're 100 big blinds deep, I'm definitely making it like 12.5 or even 13. We have queens. This is not one of those situations if they go all in and they have aces, you ask your friends, oh my god, could I have flat called it? Could I have done this? I never want to hear that nonsense again, and I think it's really important to realize that. If you have 60 big blinds, you can get queens all in pre-flop. If they have aces or kings, so be it. That's just the way it is. Don't start thinking backwards in hands. I see this so often. Like somebody will have kings, somebody else will have aces, and people will say, what if I would have just called the flop? Or just call pre-flop, just call the flop. Maybe I can fold the turn because the board is scary. Like, what the fuck are we doing? You know, are we really trying to look for ways to minimize our profit with kings because somebody has aces once in a while? So, this is so important because probably the #1 thing I realize when people are talking to me about hands, just let that go. Let that go. If you get queens or kings all in pre-flop, it's almost always going to be a good decision. Yes, there's going to be some situations where it's for 150 big blinds, there's 3 people going absolutely mental from strong positions. Maybe a good time to toss the queens away. But in this situation that I showed you here, you're in the big blind, they go all in, I call, they have kings. No word ever has to be mentioned about that hand again. We move on. Very important. All right, we're going to call along with king 8 off. Had this player just called pre-flop from one of those positions, I would have raised this. I'm a little bit more hesitant versus somebody that does it from the first position. Indicates a little bit more strength. This should have definitely been a bigger raise. When you isolate out of position versus 2, just make it 5 big blinds, or against 1 like 4.5 big blinds. So this is not enough. You're just not going to get the folds that you're looking for. So one of the problems now is that you don't know shit about this player's range. Like it could be anything, because he's just going to call anything that he calls, he's going to call, right? And you really want to sort of force him to also make some folds, because otherwise you can't bluff. King 5 is not something that we open on the button. We can definitely do it like half the time or something, but for all the fringe cases, I won't bother you guys too much. It is important to mention though, because I feel like most people are so weak at opening ranges. It's really important to mention to you guys where the cutoffs are and what you can do when we play these hands. We have pocket 7s. Gonna raise from a small blind. If they re-raise, we're going to go all in. Pocket 7 is a very strong hand here. We take it down. Pocket 9s, we're gonna raise. Really strong hands. Really happy we don't get re-raised from those positions. Would have definitely been a tough little spot, but we take that one down. Easy peasy. All right, we're gonna call here in the big blind, 7-8. Very good hands. It's a board that gets missed a lot. I'm just going to take a small stab at it. I mean, think about it. He doesn't open 5-4 offsuit, 5-3 offsuit, King 5 offsuit, Queen 5 offsuit, Queen 3 offsuit. All of those hands aren't in there. I'm just going to lead. Of course, his ace highs are going to call, but I'll have plenty of room to work with the 7-8. You don't want to do this with just any hand. Like a hand like 10-9 would be a mistake. It's really important the fact that if the turn is a 6 or a 4, I get a straight draw now. So that's a very important little piece of information that makes me lead with this hand. Okay, we have bottom 2 pair here. We're in the big blinds. It got calls. Lots of ace-high hands in here. I think I'm actually just going to check raise and tax the ace-high hands. Gets a little iffy if I call, they call behind. It's going to be a little bit hard for me to see what's happening. On turns, it might get checked through. There could be bad runouts. Diamond could really destroy my action. Obviously, only lose to ace-queen. One thing that's really important to realize, ace-queen will raise a lot pre-flop. So I'm still going to give this person weaker aces. And flush draws, it's time to bet strong. Because of that assumption as well, not only could he have hands where a diamond hurts us, you also have to think, what if the river is a 7 of diamonds? We can't bet that card because now all of a sudden representing flushes and straights, right? So think about that. Like if you bet on a very dangerous board, your 2-pair just isn't going to get paid off, which means that you're just value towning yourself because you're only going to get called by better hands, right? So keep that in mind and keep thinking logically, right? Like don't think like, oh, this is necessarily a scare card for us. I see this as a reasonable break. I'd rather see this card than a 10 because I think that ace-10 is a much more likely hand to limp. So this is absolutely fine. I have to bet strong, get some value for our hand while the board still looks clean. This also works better when we have a straight draw that we make a bluff with or a flush draw because we get to actually put some pressure on their hand. All right, we're going to defend here. We have King 5, flop 2 pair. I think it's very important that you guys get used to defending the big blind more versus raises. It's something that I see people very surprised by when I stream. I am going to call here. Might be tempting to check raise. I think 7-5 is a much better hand to check raise with because then at least people can have a pair of kings. Now I block a pair of kings, so it's actually hard to see where the value comes from. That's what you have to think, right? If I check raise, what am I going to call by? Mainly a pair of kings. But if I have a king and there's a king there, that chance is actually quite small. So then we're going to resort more to check calling, check raising turns. You know, and sometimes calling with a good hand out of position is nice because we have to fold so much when we call from the blinds, right? At this point, please, guys, please bet big. Don't do this because like, oh, they check, so I need to get paid. People are going to show up with a pair of 7s. They are going to show up with a pair of 8s. It's up to them to find the calls versus big bets. Get some value for your hand. It's so important to get value because if you don't bet big with this hand, you're just never betting big, right? And that means that the max value when you have a good hand on this board is going to be, what, 2.5, 3 big blinds on the river? Nah, hell nah. Very nice. Immediately here, we have jacks. There's an open from early position. We raise. We can pretty much discount this player because they only had 3 big blinds. So let's just play as if we were in a heads-up pot. What would be a good bet in position in a 3-bet pot? It would be something like 30, 20, anything between 25 and 30% in position, and we can just bet. That does mean that we should take it a little bit easy when they call, but we're still ahead of a lot of hands. But the nice thing is a lot of those hands aren't going to bet the river. If they have a hand like pocket 8s, pocket 6s, pocket 10s, they're not going to bet the river. Obviously, if we want to bluff, we're going to do it with ace high hands, king high hands, jack 10 off. We're not going to bluff with jacks. Remember that. Do not bluff with good hands. You have better hands to do it with. So we're going to check back. And again, we beat pocket 8s. Very easy. Just like I said, they're going to check. They're going to hope to beat ace high. They're going to check to the river. So nothing on the hand there. All right, we're going to check king high here. If we raise, we keep all the king 9, king 10, and king jacks in. And then they fold all of their king 7, king 6, king 5. And we want to keep all of those in. So king 8, good hand to keep in there. All right, we have ace-deuce offsuit here in the big blinds. When we're up against early positions, we're definitely folding this hand. The fun thing about ace-deuce offsuit is that it introduces some raises. Ace-3 and ace-deuce are used as bluffs sometimes from the blind, especially, I was going to say, especially when there's a call in between. So let's employ that right now. Don't go too crazy with this. You know, you can do this like half the time when you're in this particular situation. Don't do it when the pre-flop raiser is over here. But I do think it's important that during these videos, we're going to start talking about bluffing a little bit as well with bad hands from the blinds. I think it's important that you guys realize that what's really important here is that the caller is just going to have a bunch of king 10, queen jack, 7-8 suited, ace-8 suited. Just hands they're not going to defend against the raise with. We block with the ace, and this is where blockers come into play, right? The ace blocks a lot of the strong hands that the opener will have that is going to put us in trouble. Ace queen, ace jack, ace king, of course, and pocket aces. A little bit less so because there's less combinations of that, but very important. And we got it through. Queen jack under the gun, we're just going to raise. This is standard. 50, well, we can't say generally 50 big blinds deep. We have 3 stacks that are around 20 big blinds, so... but still, the weakest hand we'd open here is queen 8. I'm gonna bet 1 big blind. We're up against a 20 big blind stack. He's gonna fold a bunch of hands. We also get way more value with a 1 big blind bet. If we start betting too big, then we make the ranges too strong. They're gonna fold too much, and then our hand gets into awkward spots. But on boards like ace 9, king jack, ace deuce deuce against 20 big blind stack, those are all boards we can easily just bet 1 big blind on. And immediately into the next hand, I know a lot of you guys are surprised by stuff like this, but against the button that pure min raises, you can call a lot of hands. So I decide to call. I understand if you guys when you first start defending big blinds that you're going to choose to go a little bit on the tighter side and start defending 7-5 offsuit and higher, but trust me, you can't start folding 7-5 offsuit or you're just torching money. And I understand flops will be hard, and I understand it's hard to flop middle pair on jack 7 deuce, but we'll fix all of those situations as we go. Or you come into my Discord, of course, and in my Discord, you're going to ask about what you can do in certain situations. I have a Discord that you can find a link in this YouTube video in the description. In my Discord, I help people with their strategy questions. There's a forum for it. You can make your own posts. People comment on it. So if you don't have a place to talk any strategy, that's definitely a good spot for you. Ace 5 suited, great hand to bluff with. In position, we make it 3 times the raise, so we're just going to do it. Let's see how it develops. Very easy hand to fold if they shove on us, of course. Has potential. The ace blocks a lot of their strong continues, like ace king and ace queen. We're going to go for a raise again. Generally, and this is, I think, something that a lot of people struggle with, if you want to decide whether to call or to raise with king queen, a good thing to know is how many people behind you have position on you. If I call here and I get called or re-raise from here, then all of a sudden I have a problematic person behind me. So I'm much more prone to flat call with king queen or ace jack offsuit, which is another great example, when I'm in this position or this position as opposed to this one. When I'm over here, I think all of a sudden it qualifies really well to make a bluff out of it. I block kings, queens, ace king, and ace queen. I mean, think about like all those strong hands that will put you into trouble. So the more people you have behind you, the more I tend to turn these hands into more of a sort of like bluff. It's almost like a semi-bluff, right? It's like bluffing with a draw. You don't have an entirely shit hand, but you're not in love with it either. Alright, this is going to be the last hand of this video, and it's going to be a fold. I think it's really important when you have hands like ace-queen offsuit, look for instances of strength, right? Yes, we could be bluffing here with this hand, but I don't really like the scenario for it. We have a raise from under the gun. We have a 30 big blind stack that's making a small 3-bet, so at this point, I'm not in love with this hand. Had these players been here, I definitely could have pulled something or shoved or done anything else, but I think here we're going to have to fold. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you did, please drop a comment down below if you have any other questions, and if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel, that would mean that you show support and also that you don't miss anything else that comes out. So I'm really enjoying these, and I love what you guys are saying about these videos, so keep it up, and I'll see you next time. Bye.